Okay, so quick little story time, right? Basically, like in the beginning of 2022, I started working on a job for a customer, and they were like the owners of. I'm not gonna say it, but basically, I was working on a video game on which we would reproduce like virtual clones of influencers from social media and stuff, and they would be fighting against each other and all the type of stuff, you know. So I was working on this job. I got paid for it pretty nicely in the beginning, and then eventually the job was just becoming more and more complicated, and the customer was requesting changes and everything, but I didn't put these changes through in the contract. So on paper, he still kind of could say that my quote for the initial job that I had wasn't completed. And that I needed to return all of the money for the entire year that I basically worked on it, you know, because the initial quote wasn't completed and I didn't update the quote as soon as the project changed, as soon as they kind of requested more from me. So I ended up spending hundreds of hours on this project. I got paid like maybe like 10K in total, and I had to return all the money. And I had basically like a year to do it. And in the same year that I need to return the money, I also built the entire car, or at least I was trying to. So also on the same day, basically on my birthday, when I also heard that I could build the car, I also heard the news that I was gonna need to be paying this money back. So I needed to work double time, you know, to make sure that I had actual budget to build the car, but also that I could legally like fulfill everything that I needed to in order to not get in trouble with them, you know. So that was a very tough lesson, because you know I just worked my ass off on that project still, and all of the time that was just wasted, and money that I spent on other people working on the project for me, and everything. I couldn't refund them, but I got refunded though. So you know, it was a lesson. I made sure that from that moment forward, my contracts were a little bit more professional, and that I would be very attentive to how people could manipulate and play these different tactics to just kind of get a year of free work out of me, you know. So yeah, that was a real eye-opening moment. But that led to the point where I was also starting to actually build the car. That for the frame of the car, I couldn't afford to actually have everything welded as I was initially planning on. So I initially also got a quote from a guy who said he could weld the entire frame for me and everything for about €1,000. And eventually that ended up becoming like 3,500 euros. So then I wasn't able to then afford it anymore, while also paying back the debt that I had. So it was just, a lot of different things coming together at a moment where I would really be able to use that money to way better use than to paying that guy back. But it just happens in the part of the process, and it's something I could probably write about in my book someday. But we'll get there. But basically, what that ended up happening, or what it ended up meaning for the project, is that I needed to become very creative in how I was actually going to assemble the frame, because I don't have any facility or ability to weld here where I'm at, and I still needed to make like a metal frame that would be able to deal with all of the forces to make a car drive at 45 kilometers an hour, but also go for bumps at that speed. You might have some accidental, incidents where you don't see something coming. So you need to be prepared for all those type of situations. So what I ended up doing is I had these aluminum bars, and I basically adjusted and connected everything together with these blue plastic 3D prints. And in some cases, these were actually very tough, and it felt like it would actually hold the frame up. But in some other cases, they broke. So I kind of found out quickly that it wasn't really going to be fully strong enough to then hold the entire weight of the car up while I was actually sitting in it and driving with this method of production. Um, but I found that out a little bit too late, because in the whole beginning stages and everything, once when the seats weren't completed and things like that, I couldn't test out if it was actually gonna hold my entire weight. So when I was actually planning on launching the car on the 28th of October, this was in Oskam in the southeast of Amsterdam, I actually had I had all of the components that I 3D designed for the car to be working. They were finished, but just the assembly process of putting it together and making sure that it was like a driving concept that wasn't working out the way that I planned it to. Some of the bars, like I said, of the frame kind of broke off while I was trying to sit with my full weight on the car, and that kind of allowed some of the pieces to be misaligned and things to not fit no more the way that they were. So I just needed to redo a whole bunch of things, you know. So over the past couple of weeks, I've been trying to adjust it with a lot of these metal like L-shaped patterns and stuff, and also these aluminum profiles and just things all over that I kind of bolted to these frame sections. And now it just feels way stiffer. There's no more flex in there, just one single piece. Every single movement that I'm putting through the front is actually like doing something in the back. So there's a way more torsional rigidity in it, and it just works way better, you know. So that is basically where I'm at right now. So in the next coming weeks, I will be rebuilding the suspension of the car. I won't be redesigning every single thing, but I do need to make some adjustments to these like connection points where the actual frame is mounted to the chassis or the frame, where the suspension, I should say, is mounted to the actual frame. To also make sure that with all of these aluminum and steel profiles that I added to it, the original pieces that I actually had on the frame still fit, you know. So I need to make some adjustments to those, and as soon as that is complete, I can actually bolt the entire suspension system back to the car. On the rear, I also need to make some changes because that is the area where I probably added most of the actual like reinforcement pieces. So all of the original clamps that I had that were gonna going along these braces and stuff won't fit anymore. So I need to redesign those to kind of make sure that everything kind of fits in the spot where it needs to go. As soon as that is done, I will also make a new cradle for the rear motors to sit in, because as you can see here, there are now like two electrical motors sitting on the ground right here, but these will actually be like floating right in the middle section right here. And then those need to be connected to the electrical computer control units that are already sitting in there. And then we have also the battery units connected down the side along the seat, you know. So now because of the frame adjustments and all of the things that we did, I also need to make like new cradles for the batteries and everything to sit in because they don't actually fit in the frame no more. So there's still like a bunch of work that's gonna need to be done to actually ensure that the car will run. But I can just periodically now check things off, you know, because I also have a lot of printers working. I have a bunch of like plastic stacked up, so and I have all the opportunity just to go, you know. Also, one of the things that I still need to see is the new seat, because I also made a seat with an adjustment to the backrest, so that's a little bit more vertical upward. So in this position, you will be looking more towards the sky, and basically with the adjustment, it's just a little bit more forward, but that also allows us to move the entire seat way backwards. So that will just be better for your visibility, but also the momentum of the front wheels turning left to right will be more ahead of you, so it will be just a little bit more comfortable. And you know, it's just also dynamically probably a little bit better to have the weight distribution a little bit more towards the rear. So that's going to be fun too. That is also one of the things that I'm really looking forward to, is that dynamically, basically what we will have is a 300 to 250 kilogram small electrical car that has a pretty stiff like tubular frame with very long travel suspension on it, and just a bunch of different pieces of trickery that we can also use with the electronic control systems for the motors and stuff to kind of replicate a limited slip differential on the way, you know. So I think it will actually be very fun to drive at the same time, while it is also just a very beautiful thing to look at, in my opinion at least, you know. So that is going to be very cool to do. Also, one of the things that I'll probably figure out is that also once I actually sat in it a couple of months ago with all of the components attached to it, and actually sat on the suspension itself on its own weight, the suspension basically collapsed to like 3 centimeters to the floor or something, you know. So I need to make sure that as soon as you actually add all the weight to it, that the suspension is also keeping the car up another like 10 centimeters off the ground for like bumps and everything, you know. So I also need to recheck where the actual suspension will be mounted to the chassis to make sure that it's actually has the correct ride height as well. So yeah, there's a shit ton of work still needs to be done. But hopefully I will also soon have like an update on the location. As you can see, we're here currently still at the same office that we was previously, but I'm kind of like expanding outside of the main box that I have right here. So here we have like all of the 3D printers lined up and everything. And then here I have this newer a little addition to the corner and everything where I will be storing the car and just having it a little bit as a display. But yeah, that is just basically like a quick, hopeful update on everything that's been going on over the past couple months with not only the car but also just the development of the business and everything. On that note, I do have like a lot of things coming when it comes to just the business side and also other projects that I will be combining into this right here. So yeah, just make sure to stay on the lookout, because Veldboom Studios is gonna do some shit. We're really on our way to make some big impact, and I just can't wait to see what that turns out to look like. So yeah, I'm gonna get back to the house. I'm gonna clean up everything that's a little bit dirty here. I'm gonna take tomorrow off, and then yeah, y'all see me back on Sunday.